Suman, Suman Mishra. Suman Mishra is the Chief Executive and a whole-time Director of Mahindra Electric Mobility Limited, responsible for charting the future of electric mobility for Mahindra Group. She is the Chief Executive Designate for the Last Mile Mobility Business, known as LMM. Suman has around 20 years of global experience across business transformation and strategy in both consulting and corporate settings. She has worked on performance transformation across sales, customer insights, manufacturing, purchasing, product, cost, and supply chain. Within Mahindra Group has worked on shaping strategy and implementing strategic initiatives across the automotive division, electric vehicles, real estate, hospitality, and agri division in the Mahindra Group. She was responsible for capital allocation across the group companies, driving critical investment decisions. Prior to Mahindra, she was responsible for end-to-end global product launches across US, Europe, India, and international markets for Kipla. In her work at McKinsey, where she was an associate partner, she worked across strategy, sales, organization transformation, manufacturing, and supply chain across multiple Indian and global companies across auto and tier one automotive, pharma, technology, majors, chemical, and industrial sectors. She has worked extensively in Singapore, USA, and India. She has been recognized as Economic Times 40 under 40 business leaders and an Economic Times Woman Ahead. She is a non-executive director on the board of CIE Automotive, Medwell Ventures, and Miru Cabs. She is an MBA from University of Michigan Ross School of Business, where she graduated with high distinction. She is a computer engineer from NTU Singapore, where she graduated with first class honors. She is an amazing woman leader. And now I'd welcome Miss Suman Mishra. It is not audible. I think you have to share the sound.
Let me try doing it, Rigi. Just give me a second.
Hi everyone, I'm Suman Mishra, the CEO of Mahindra Electric, and I'm really happy to be here today with you and share my thoughts. Before I started this role, I have spent many years working in companies like Mahindra, Cipla, and Accenture, and I worked in Singapore, US, and India in a lot of different functions. But let me go back to the beginning. I started my journey in a small town in Rourkela in a school called the Ispat English Medium School. Just like you school kids all know that the Indian school system is very focused on education and particularly English, maths, and science. So it's a good thing then that those were my most favorite subjects. I've always liked maths and always found that numbers made a lot of sense to me. But I really truly fell in love when I was exposed to the world of computers. And yes, I had to wait all the way to class 11 and 12 to get to see a computer. It was only 1 hour in a whole week, and we used to eagerly wait for the computer class. Not like most of you today who already have laptops. I don't know when from kindergarten or KG1 or class 1 yourselves. So it wasn't the very sophisticated computers of today, but they were very large desktops, and we used to sit there and do some coding and games. And we used to design some games. After my 12th standard, I got a scholarship to pursue my engineering in Singapore. I am a computer engineer, so I had to go through a competitive exam. I did quite well to get the scholarship, but that part of my life, my time in Singapore, was really a part of life that really set me free and allowed me to pursue my dreams. I, as a computer engineer, studied electronics, digital logic, discrete maths, operating systems, embedded systems, artificial intelligence, and a lot of other subjects. But I really liked embedded systems. So I did my 3rd and 4th year specialization in hardware systems. I wrote an algorithm on addition, which got published in the IEEE transaction on computers. So it's quite very funny that today I run a company where software and hardware are sort of the crucial drivers of success. After this, I joined Accenture, worked on software development, then went and got my MBA from University of Michigan. This is in America. Even in MBA, my strong foundation of maths allowed me to really learn and explore the world of finance and strategy. I really do think that improving our approach to logical thinking is a key driver of success no matter what we do. And for that, having a strong technical education is extremely important. You know, after I got my MBA in US, I worked there for many years. And then eventually we moved back to India about 11 years ago, where then I started working for large Indian corporates. And there I took many roles, and finally I reached this stage. So I thought I'll share some of my life lessons with you. First of all, you have to embrace learning. Learning and growing is foundational to success, no matter how young or how old you are. Even today, I jump at the chance to learn new things and really enrich my knowledge, and also try to learn at a very foundational level. Try to question all the basics so that you really understand what it is that you're trying to learn. The second thing I would say is that develop a strong appreciation for maths and science. There are many careers you can choose to pursue, but most all of them will improve from a foundation which is technically oriented, whether it's maths or science. Because most of the jobs that you will get or the careers you will do will require you in some way to either manage a business, there's the maths and the finance part of it, or to really give designs. If you were a designer, you would really need to know a lot of maths. If you want an architect, it is also based on maths. And of course, if you are going into a traditional company, which is management degrees, there you would need maths on an everyday basis. But the most important of all this is hard work and determination. To me, this is the core and foundation to success. Like the old saying goes, if at first you don't succeed, try and try again. So you must not give up, and you must chase your dreams. Do not choose the easy path. Sometimes it's just easier to give up when you are faced with challenges. But I promise you that if you keep at it and practice, things will get easier and better for you. Personally, for me, my parents and my teachers always encouraged me to study and try hard at whatever I did. And this allowed me to move from small town Rourkela to Singapore, to America, to India, and work in some of the largest corporates in the country. One thing, and the last thing I'll leave with you, is No matter what you do, there are going to be very many people who will be as good and as smart as you. So what will really, really make you stand apart is the effort that you put into the role that you do. With this few words, I want to wish you happy Navratri and hope you are having a blast during this festive season. Do stay safe, wear your mask, and keep social distancing no matter what you do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we would have loved to have Miss Suman over here with us sharing her thoughts, but then because of a busy schedule, we couldn't. But I hope you all got to learn something and got inspired from Miss Suman. And thank you so much. And so, as a small token of gratitude, just a second. As a small token of gratitude, we promised to plant a tree on behalf of Miss Suman for sharing all her amazing thoughts. Thank you so much. And now coming to our most exciting part of the entire session, which we've all been waiting for, our session. Today we have an amazing young innovator, Shravya. Shravya is a 13-year-old from Chennai. She has been learning coding for 2 years and is a certified game and app developer. She is very passionate about working on social issues. She has led projects on innovation and social entrepreneurship. She has also been using her coding and design thinking skills to build apps for many small businesses. Wow. So now I welcome our genius and amazing speaker of the day, Shravya. So the stage is all yours. I think you.
Yeah, thank you for that introduction. I'm just going to share the screen. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Shravya, and today I'll be talking on coding and why I consider it the modern magic. I'll be talking about what coding is, its benefits, the fields in which it's being used, and how you can also start learning it today. I would like to start with a poll. How many of you know what coding is? You can raise your hands. Okay, thank you. And how many of you know how to code? Wow, amazing. So for those of you who don't know, coding is the process of creating instructions for computers using programming languages. Just how we talk to each other using English or Hindi or whatever languages you speak, we talk to computers using programming languages like Python or JavaScript. What do you consider magic? For me, magic is a sort of skill that gives us the power to solve problems and help others. And that's exactly what coding does. It may not be able to make you fly or talk to animals, but it gives you the means to make life easier for both ourselves and for others. It has gained a lot of popularity recently, mainly because of how many fields it has been used in, mainly to reduce both time and labor needed for tasks. Agriculture is one of the biggest industries in India, and mainly due to the rising population, lots of technologies are needed to keep up with it. Coding has been used here to detect pests in plants before they even take effect, therefore reducing the number of crops wasted. It's also used to help achieve precision farming. Precision farming is using the exact amount of resources for a particular task to basically reduce wasting. And actually 84% of our total water available has been used for irrigation. when only a fraction of it is actually needed. Coding can be used to reduce this number and actually conserve water for future generations. Healthcare is another industry which has gained a lot of popularity recently, gained a lot of importance recently, mainly due to the pandemic. Surgeries take a lot of time and lots of effort, and surgeons are required to remain very active and focused for hours on end because lives are on the line. When robots are used in surgeries, they reduce both time and increase precision. Coding and prediction algorithms are also used to predict future medical conditions based on the medical data already available and the medical data of people with the medical condition. So it can basically predict whether or not you'll be sick even before you are. In education, mostly with virtual classes, coding has been used to create interactive learning environments. Some examples are lab practicals on just your computer. You have an entire science lab in just this much area. Students also learn in different ways and different concepts and different methods to learn different concepts. And personalized learning is made possible through coding and to create this. Coding and AI algorithms are also used in entertainment to monitor search history and provide YouTube or Netflix recommendations. You may have noticed that the more posts you read on a subject, the more posts you see on that subject. And that's actually made due to AI algorithms. This data is also used to personalize advertisements on browsers. Moving on to the benefits of coding. Coding has many benefits. One of the main ones is obviously that it improves career prospects. Coding is in very high demand and it also pays very well. So the amount of career opportunities is limitless. It's also universally applicable. The Python that you learn in India is also the Python that you learn in the US. So no matter where you go, coding will always be useful to you. It also gives new perspectives and enhances problem solving. It lets you think of problems clearly and come up with algorithms to actually solve them and make models. It also complements creativity, letting you express your ideas and visualize them to help others understand it too. That way your ideas will not remain ideas anymore. Moving on to the fun part, which is the actual coding. So I'll be talking a little about Python basics, which the concepts will remain pretty similar throughout all coding languages, and the syntax also remains pretty basic. One of the main things in coding are variables, and variables are basically anything that hold data. In Python, you can create variables by just writing the variable name, which here is given as var, an equal to sign, and whatever value you want to assign. So here I can give a string, hello, and a string is basically any word. I can just print this saying print and then the name of the variable.
Shravya, we are still seeing your PPT slide only. Are you showing some other screen now? Why don't you try minimizing your PPT and then so that we can see the coding on your screen. Yeah, now we see your code. Yes. Now, can you unmute yourself? We can see your screen now.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have the permission.
Yeah.
To unmute.
Okay, now we see your screen. You could go ahead.
Yeah, so here I've declared a variable var, and I've given it the value of a string, which is hello. And print is basically an inbuilt function in Python, which is used to basically show anything you put inside it. So I put the variable var. So now if I run it, I can see that it just says hello here, the output. We also have one more concept known as inputs, which basically take inputs from the users. So I can say name, which is the name of the variable here, is equal to input and then the prompt that I want to give. So I can put your name. And when I display it, I want to display hello and then the variable name. So which is the variable var and then the variable name. So now it asks me for my name and I can put that here. And it says hello, Shravya. So that's basically how inputs work. There's another concept known as lists, and I'll just call it LI. So a list holds multiple data and they are made using the square bracket. So this is the variable name, and then inside the square brackets, you put many different variables. Here I can put, let's say, a variable of fruits. So there's apple, orange, I can then call one of these variables at a time or the whole list if I want. So if I say print li, it prints the whole list here. And if I want to print individual things, I would have to put a square bracket here and then a numerical value for whatever it is that I want to show. So if I wanted to call the word apple, what do you think would be the numerical value that I would have to put inside the square brackets? You can just type it in the chat. Okay, so I see many zeros and 1, 1. So we're going to try both. So first with 1, if I put a 1 here and run the code, we can see that it actually says orange, which is the second value here. So actually how lists work in Python is the first value is considered 0, and then 1, 2, and so on. So that was a bit of a trick question. But now if we put 0 and run the code, we can see that it says apple. Lists can also be modified later in the code. For example, after I already declare the list, I can say that list square bracket 0, which is the value apple right now, is equal to, let's say, here. And now if I print the list, it says pear instead of apple.
Shravya, is there a way you can make it bigger? It's too small for us to see.
I'm not sure.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah. Can you see the basic part? The coding?
This is fine. We can manage.
Okay. Well, you can also insert new values in lists using functions like append. And when I say append, it'll automatically be added to the end of the list. So I can say list.append again here. And now when I run the code, it adds peer to the end of the list. Same way, I can also remove variables and also clear the list. So if I say remove apple, it totally removes the apple, and I can also clear the list, which will remove everything in the list. One more thing is functions. I'm sorry, conditions. So we'll start with if conditions, which are the most commonly used. So these basically place restrictions upon the variables. I can say if there is a variable apple in the list, which is li here, then I'd ask it to print there is apple the list. So when I run this code, yeah, you can see that it says that there's an apple in the list. I can just change this to orange. And it gives me the output. But if I remove orange totally from the list, then we can see that there is no output for this function. So for that, we have one more condition known as an else condition. So if the if condition does not take place for some reason, or the condition is not satisfied, then it should print, let's say, there are no fruits in this list. And now when I run the code again, it says that there are no fruits in this list because I removed orange. But there are still apple and bananas, which are both considered fruits. So I feel like this is too much of a jump. So one more condition that we have is if, which means else if technically. And if the first condition is not satisfied, but you don't want to directly jump to else, we use one more condition known as if. Here I can place one more condition. If there is a banana in this list, then I can ask it to say, there are fruits in this list, but no oranges. So there are still fruits in this list, but there are no oranges, which is what it says. Then one more thing are loops. Loops are basically pieces of code that will keep on repeating. And in Python, we have two types of loops, which are while loops and for loops. So while loops take place until a condition stops being satisfied. For example, I can have one more variable, which I'll name I, and give it the value 1. So here I'll declare that as long as I is less than 6, I want it to keep printing I is less than 6. And I also put one more thing in this while loop, which is I is equal to I plus 1, which basically means that every time this loop is run, every time I is less than 6, 1 will be added to I. So the first time it'll be 1, then 2, then 3 until it's 6, and then the loop will stop. So here it's been put 5 times, which is because it is until 5, it's less than 6. So I can also put less than or equal to, in which case it will come 6 times. Other sort of loop is the for loop. And this is basically used for iterating over a sequence. In this case, a sequence would be, for example, our list. So I will just add one more value here. And I can say for a variable x, our list, we can print the variable x itself. So the output for this would be that every variable would be individually printed. When we run this, we can see that there's banana and then pear. Okay, so the next thing and the final thing we'll be learning about is functions. So functions are blocks of code in which data is fed into it and it produces and returns a result. So the way you declare functions in Python is you put def, meaning define, the name of the function, which is fun for now, and you put 2 round brackets here and then a colon. So now I can declare whatever I want to happen in the function. So in this case, let's just go with the simple one that will print flow from the function. And now if I run this code, you can see that nothing happens. This is because the one main property of functions is that they don't do anything unless they are called. So you call functions by just writing the name of the function and then 2 round brackets. And it says hello from the function. We can also use variables from outside the function inside the function. And for that, you need to declare that you need a variable here, and you say that inside the brackets. So let's just say that a variable is x, or let's take another here, v. And I want to print v multiplied by p. This is a simple example, but these can be used for many uses. So here again, I'll declare one more variable, which is the variable I'll use for the function. So variable for function. And here I can give it the value 2. So now inside the, when I call the function, I would have to specify what variable I wanted to use as v here. So inside the brackets, I'll have to declare that. So this here is varfun. So I'll put this here, and when you run the code, you can see 6, which is 2 into 3. So that's all we're learning for today in Python. And these may seem pretty simple, but they can actually be used to produce a lot of complicated codes. And this is the basic logic to it. Python also has lots of packages which are inbuilt into it. Some examples are print, which is an inbuilt function. And in this game that I made, I'm using this function called, this package called random. So this is a small game using only what we learned till now, plus random. So I just, in the starting, print the name of the game, which is the guessing game. In this game, the computer will basically generate a random integer and store it in the variable number. It will generate a random integer between 1 and 9. And we'll have to guess what integer it has picked. So I've declared one more variable known as chances, which in this case is 0 in the beginning. And I give them the instructions. Guess a number between 1 and 9. So here I use a while loop. So while the chances are less than 5, I have a variable called guess, which is the integer input of the guess that they made. So integer is basically a number, and the input otherwise is a string. And mathematical operations cannot be performed on strings. So sometimes we declare what type of variable, what type of variable should be. In this case, it's an integer. So the input that the users give will be stored as an integer. Now I will check with an if condition if the guess is equal to the number. If they did, I say that they won. Else if the guess is less than the number, I'll say the guess is too low. Else, the only other possible condition is the guess is more than the number. So I can just use else here and say the guess is too high. And this I've written chances plus equal to 1. Can someone guess what that does? The chat. Yes, so the variable chances is increasing by 1. Previously, I'd written it as chances is equal to chances plus 1, where it can also be shortened as chances plus equal to 1. So it will be incremented by 1 every time this loop is run. So first the chances will be 1, 2, 3, and so on until it reaches 5. If the chances is more than 5, and then I'll say that they lose, and I'll give the way what the number chosen was. So we can just run this code once. So I can just guess the number 4. So the guess is too high. So I can maybe guess 2. And now the only possible answer is 1. So it says congrats, you won. So this is a small but simple and fun game, which is made using the basic concepts. Change this again. So this is the terms that we learned: variables, inputs, lists, conditions, loops, and functions. Now, how can you start learning coding? Well, first we're going to talk about a few programming languages to start with. First of which is Python, which we just learned. It's one of the fastest growing programming languages, and it's mainly used for data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and web development and app development. JavaScript is actually the most used programming language in the world, and it's used for web development, mobile apps, and developing games. C# is another popular programming language. It was developed by Microsoft and inspired by the language C, and it's also used for 2D and 3D game development. HTML and CSS are actually used to design websites and apps. So even though both Python, JavaScript, and C# are used for this, HTML and CSS actually play a big part in designing it. Most other languages are used for logic in apps, in websites. So here, even if I go right here and say I want to inspect this page, all this code that you see here is all HTML. And you can see that it's declared as a document type HTML. From where to start, there's always Scratch and code.org, which are both interactive interfaces for learning JavaScript and mainly focus on game and app design. And if you're more into theory, there's one more website called W3 School, which has documents on all programming languages and all the elements you need to learn in them. So thank you for your time, and I hope I inspired you to at least give coding a chance.
Thanks, Shravya. What we will do now is we will look for questions from the audience, because I saw there was quite a few people in the audience who are also familiar with coding and been trying out things. So let's hear from them what they would like to know more about. Meanwhile, how many of you have actually started with Scratch? Can you just raise your hands? Okay, I see Prasiddhi. Yes. Oh, there are quite a few people. That's nice. Very nice. How did you start, Shravya? Was it Scratch in your case, or you took a different route? Shravya, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I need permission to unmute every time.
Okay, okay. So
Yeah,
how did you
yeah,
start
I
your
also
journey?
started with Scratch.
Okay, okay. Just looking for persons and people who want to talk. Just raise your hand. We will unmute you. You could go ahead and ask your questions. What kind of projects have you really worked on so far?
Well, Prasiddhi said, I have also worked with small companies and built apps for them using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, basically a combination of three. And
How easy or difficult it is? How long did it take when you built the first app? How much time did
well,
it
I
take for you?
worked with a small team, so it took about 2 weeks for an app.
And what was your customers' response to it? Did
Yeah,
they like it the first time, or you had to take it through a few iterations?
no, there were a few iterations. So we presented it, I think, about twice or thrice. And there were always some small changes to make. And,
Sure, sure. Mayank wants to know, where did you learn this from?
well, I learned from a course, but I told you that free websites and that you can also learn it from.
Okay, sure. You are also doing some university course on coding.
Yeah, it's CS50. It's from Harvard, and it basically teaches C and C++, and also a little Python. That mainly focuses on the problem-solving side of coding.
Is it a free course? Can any one of
It's
us
free,
take that?
yeah. Yeah,
And what did you say the name of the course is?
just type it. It's called CS50.
CS50. Okay, 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 sure. So that's for Mayank to get started. So, any fun games that you made other than the one that you talked about? Are there any other games?
I made a lot of games using JavaScript. Um, even I try to replicate the no internet game, which is a pretty famous one, the dinosaur one.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if I still have that, but yeah.
So when you just started coding, was it as much fun as it is now? Were you a bit worried? How will you learn all this? Did you go through that phase, or it was fun all through?
It was a little overwhelming at first, but especially when I started app development, I really got into it and I really started having a passion for it. And after that, even though it became a little hard, I always felt like it was worth learning.
And all this is beyond your school curriculum, is it? Do you learn a bit of coding at school also?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. So the answer for Mayank to just get started would be Scratch, is it?
Yeah, Scratch is pretty simple and it's also a very fun way to get started. It doesn't even feel like you're coding.
Ha. Prem has a question about design thinking and coding. So we understand that you had exposure to both these things. So how do you see these two coming together? Have you used both design thinking and coding together in any of your projects?
Well, I have been part of some hackathons and some like utter things to brainstorm ideas. In that, most of the actual solutions I came up with were using design thinking, but to implement them, I made apps using coding, and so both of them do come together.
So what exactly is the design thinking?
Design thinking is basically seeing problems in a different way and coming up with creative and insightful solutions.
Okay, so you use the design thinking for formulating the problem and generating ideas, and for implementing the idea, you use your coding skill. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So you talked about app development for small business. So did design thinking really help you there to understand the customer needs to start with what they are trying to do, what they want the app to do for them?
Yeah. So they basically told us the basics of the app, but we also had to think what other features would they need, what all would they need in the future. So we had to implement all of that and think from their perspective and also implement that in the app while coding it.
Are there any competitions that you participated?
For
Coding competitions? Yeah.
uh, yeah, there was one challenge hackathon sort of thing, in which we had to come up with um, apps or games to help solve social issues. So I participated in that.
What
And
kind of social issue?
at that time, it was to do with the coronavirus.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So what does your app do? How does it help during a COVID time?
It was actually a game to increase awareness on it.
I see, I see. Okay.
Yeah. Increase awareness on social
So,
distancing. And
so what did you use to build this game?
I actually at the time used code.org, which I have suggested there. It's
Yes, code.org. Okay.
yeah, it's somewhat like Snack. I think it has a little more features than that. Yeah, that's also very useful. That's again JavaScript.
Sure, sure. Mayank, you have any questions? No, you are fine. Pihu, you want to share your experience with coding, Pihu? Is there anybody else who wants to share your ideas, any useful resources for those of us who want to just get started with coding for the very first time?
I think we have another question in chat.
Yeah, let me read it out. Many people get confused with which um, language to start coding in. So, Shravya, what do you suggest? Does it depend on the application? So, which language should we get started with?
Well, it does depend on application. For web designing and stuff like that, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, those would be the most useful. But I would say the easiest one, at least for me, was Python because there's not much syntax that you need to learn, and everything is written basically how you would say, so very logic based rather than syntax. But it does depend on what you plan to do.
Okay, sure. Hey, this Python is a very odd name to have for a program. So, where did it get its name?
It was actually named after a TV show, I think.
TV show.
Monty Python.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Is it? It's got nothing to do with the snake Python.
no, sounded interesting. So the creator kept the name.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, P with the side, so you asked me to unmute and share my views.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Yes, please
Sir,
go
I
ahead.
started my coding journey since sixth grade, and whenever I want to learn something new in coding, I always use free code camp www.freecodecamp.org. So, sir, it's a very easy way to learn coding, and yeah, the coding,
Can
I
you
love coding
can you type
because
that on the chat bar so that everybody can note it down?
yes,
Okay, that's great. So Pihu, you started when you were in 6th grade, correct?
yes, sir. Yes, I started when
Okay,
I was in 6th grade.
great. Shravya, which grade you were in when you started coding?
It's also in six.
6th. Okay, okay.
Yes, sir.
Freecodecamp.org. Excellent.
Yes, sir. So, sir, it gives you industry insight as well. So it really just helps you in the beginning of coding when you're just beginning, and it works its way up to complex coding as well.
Sure, sure. I think you are also interested in using coding for solving socially relevant problems. Is that right,
Yes,
Pihu?
sir. So I will be talking about that tomorrow as well.
Tomorrow, yes. We look forward to your talk tomorrow. Great.
Thank you so much, sir. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Pihu. Take care.
Thank you so much, sir.
I think we had a great session, Shravya, today. At least we all used to wonder what this coding is all about. At least for me, it was something like Greek and Latin. So today, from what you said, I feel a lot more confident that it's not too late to give it a try and start learning. So, and you also shared some resources, and Pihu
Yes.
also shared a couple of resources. So I think now there is no reason for us not to go ahead and try out and start having as much fun as you with coding. I think we should just get over our inhibitions and just get started now. So thanks for getting us, uh, helping us to get over this initial hesitation, the barriers. I'm sure we all will have the enthu to go ahead and try it out now. So let me just hand it over to Prasiddhi at this stage. Over to you. There is one more question from Prem. Shravya, do you have a GitHub account for us to follow?
Oh, yeah, I do. I'll share it.
Okay, you can just put it on the chat bar.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Over to you, Prasiddhi.
Yes. So, what an amazing talk, Shravya. We really enjoyed it. And your talk was pretty interesting because the major fact was you shared us on what coding is, gave us a perspective and how we can use it in our own lifestyles. And not only that, you even told us about how we should also take up coding and do forward. And the special point is you demonstrated to us because we all used to think that coding is very difficult with so many programs, so many different places and apps to be created. But then you showed us a different perspective that it is fun when you start with it and it is very interesting coding. So I feel that it was amazing having you on Navratri Tech Talks because we got to learn so many new things and got so inspired by your talk. And definitely today when we had our chief guest, Miss Suman ma'am, we learned so many inspiring things from her as she's very experienced, and from her experience we also learned about how we children can grow and do something. And thank you so much, Dr. Shankar, for giving us the platform to share our thoughts and skills and help others also start with their own journey of becoming a young innovator. And thank you so much, the audience, definitely, for joining us and listening to us patiently. And don't forget, friends, it's not only uh, just yeah. It's not only about this session where you're listening and joining us. You have to keep all the insights in your mind and keep using it in your lifestyle because the quiz is not very far. There are only 2 days to go, and then the G3 kit will be right in front of you. But you have to keep gathering your insights. So that's all for today. Join us tomorrow with one more amazing session and one more amazing young innovator. Sharp 6 tomorrow. And before we conclude, I request all of you to on your cameras so that we can take a screenshot and save this amazing golden memory. We can put a thumbs up and we can say G3.
G3.
G3. G3. Amazing, spectacular. So one more amazing session, one more amazing talk, and let's meet tomorrow sharp 6. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank
And on
you.
this
Bye.
note, I conclude today's session.
Bye.
Bye.